Another important principle of our newspaper that I want to talk about, and this is in line with this idea of people's organizations, is the idea of internationalism. When one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, got out of prison in 1970 because the masses all across the United States were fighting to get him out of prison, the first thing he said in a public address to his supporters, to his people, was this: "In the spirit of international revolutionary solidarity, the Black Panther Party hereby offers to the National Liberation Front and Provisional Revolutionary Government of South Vietnam an undetermined number of troops to assist you in your fight against American imperialism. It is appropriate for the Black Panther Party to take this action at this time in recognition of the fact that your struggle is also our struggle. For we recognize that our common enemy is the American imperialist, who is the leader of the international bourgeois domination." Now, whether or not the Black Panther Party actually sent people to Vietnam to help fight alongside the Vietnamese, I think is not really the point here. The point is that the spirit of this quote is that there's a recognition here that our struggles align with the struggles of oppressed and working class people all around the world, and that we have a common enemy. And those enemies are not some faraway land that we have to go chase down and fight international wars for. Our enemies are right here. Right? They're the enemies that are, giving massive bailouts to banking systems while we're losing our pensions, while our cost of education is going up, while people can't even make enough money working 2 or 3 jobs to feed themselves and put their children through school. So the principle in this quote from Huey P. Newton was the principle of internationalism and anti-imperialism, and how the local struggles that the Black Panther Party were involved in, tied into these international struggles. And that's a very important recognition. It's an important recognition because in doing our local work, right, that we don't become parochialized in our vision, in understanding that the local struggles that we're waging, which are essential, absolutely essential, that those struggles are not disconnected from other struggles happening around us and other struggles happening all around the world. So this is why in basics, for example, we cover, right, the negative and the positive happening all around the world. The negative being our oppression, our exploitation, exposing the system the way it actually is, and the positive being people's struggles, from the local to the international. This is why we cast our attention towards revolutionary movements that are actually succeeding in developing new societies, that are liberating territories and masses of people, right, against the type of oppression that people are facing. Just look at India today. Look at Nepal, look at the Philippines, look at Venezuela, look at the rest of Latin America, right? And all other parts of the world, people are still fighting against so-called globalization, which is really just, American-led imperialism, but it's imperialism for all the leading advanced capitalist countries. So basics, in essence, is propaganda for the people. All forms of media are forms of propaganda. All media is backed by a certain class, and it has a certain class perspective. Right? And this is why we can't really make sense of anything in our society if we're just reading the mainstream media, which is why people become so cynical and so much in despair, and then just so sick and tired of even reading the newspaper, because you really can't make sense of something. Right? How many times has the explanation, the excuse for the war in Afghanistan or the war in Iraq, how many times have those shifted over the last 5 years? Right? First it was to chase down Osama bin Laden, formerly working for the CIA. Then it was to liberate women, right? Then it was reconstruction and redevelopment. Now it's fighting the Taliban. How many more times is this excuse going to change? When really we can see clearly it's a war of conquest for, to maintain, to make the country safe for oil pipelines and whatnot. So basically, basics is propaganda. We're very clear about that. It's propaganda that nonetheless is based in truth, the truth of our everyday struggle. But we recognize that it serves a particular class, it serves the people, it serves the majority of people in our society. And we're very clear. We're very clear about making it explicit that we're very different from the other types of media that are out there. So those are some of the principles that kind of inform the work that we do and inform how we do, how we organize and work with people as an organization. So just to begin to conclude, to move on to the conclusions, which is how people can get involved in this, how people could support our work or support the work of other people's organizations. One is you can join Basics. Anybody can join Basics who shares these principles and values. Get in where you fit in. Help produce, distribute, fundraise, and help develop our organization, and help us work with other people's organizations in doing the same. Number two, you can get involved in one of the other people's organizations that we work with, one of the many. If you feel like you would be appropriate to be working with one of those organizations, Justice for Our, COPS, or just a few of them. We have a lot of organizational efforts that we're working with in communities around housing, around cuts of subsidies, around demolition and the land grabs and revitalization. We work very closely with the May 1st movement. And then we have lots of allies. There's Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, there's the legal organizations doing some important work too, and we support them. And finally, right, most importantly, if those struggles don't really directly relate to your life and what you're doing, of course there's the importance of working right here in the university. The university is a really important and highly contested territory in terms of what's taught here. Right? I know the disability studies right now, there's a struggle to preserve that program. I know there's been a struggle over the last couple of years over area studies, so-called area studies, as if, I won't get into that, but lots of struggles, right? Every year you guys are convinced to come out in November to spend 6 months talking about how we're going to go out in November, and then another 6 months planning how we're going to go out in November again next time to fight against tuition fees. Well, maybe there's a lot more work that can be done in building grassroots people's organizations right here, student organizations, real student movement that can actually fight to make the demand of no tuition fees a reality. So there's a lot of important struggles, and I don't got to tell you guys that. You guys know that. Helping build Basics on campuses so that the struggles of the student sector and the struggles in other sectors are coming together and are united is something that people can work on. And I'll just draw your attention to Martin. He's around, Martin. And he's a Basics member here at U of T, working with some other Basics members who are trying to build Basics right now on campuses. So that's something else you can do. And just to throw, I guess, my talk into perspective, we all have to get in where we fit in and work from the sectors and struggles that we're around and that we're immersed in. But we're all part of a common struggle, right? We're all part of a struggle to confront the oppressive system that we live in, which is capitalism. Canada is also an imperialist country, so imperialism and what Canada is doing all over. Over the summertime, I had the extreme privilege of having got to meet and interview for Basics for Community newsletter one of the founders of the contemporary and modern revolution in the Philippines, Jose Maria Sison. And in the interview, I talked to him about what people need to be doing in the context of such an extreme economic crisis, which is actually perfectly normal for capitalism in a cyclical way. Crisis is perfectly normal for capitalism, but in this moment, what should we be doing? Working class people, progressive people, what is it that we need to be doing to confront, to mobilize people around this crisis? And that was an issue number two. So just give a little more background. Like Jose Maria Sison was the founder of the massive movement, revolutionary movement that exists in the Philippines today. He's currently the head of the International League of People Struggles, and he's in exile in the Netherlands because he can't go back to the Philippines. And he was also the founder of the Communist Party of the Philippines, the New People's Army. So he has decades of experience in building revolutionary struggle. And his response to my question was that he would, to quote, "Yes, I wish that the people of Canada of various nationalities and of course of the indigenous peoples fight against imperialist globalization. They can play a very important role because they are right next to the imperialist monster, the United States, and of course that of the ruling class of Canada. The ruling classes of the United States and Canada work together to oppress the people of the world and people in their own countries. So I would wish that progressive organizations work hard and succeed in arousing, organizing, and mobilizing the people in Canada of various nationalities and ethnicities against monopoly capitalism and for democracy and socialism." Right. So I think I wanted to quote that because I think it really ties in the essence of how all our struggles are tied together, not only across the landscape of this country and this continent, but the world. So I encourage everybody to get involved and